Worksheet section 4.3 about inverse matrices. Let's start with some definitions. Question A, we have a square matrix of order n. So square matrix of order n means we have n rows by n columns. A matrix n rows n columns with ones along the main diagonal. So the diagonal elements are all equals to 1. And 0 for all other elements. All other elements are zeros. So this is the matrix. The question, how do we call this matrix? Do we know? How do we call, what's the name of such a matrix? شو نسميها هذه؟ 1 on the main diagonal and all other elements are 0.
Identity matrix.
We call it the identity matrix, and we denote it by IN. So IN, I for identity and N for the order of this matrix. معناها إذا هي order 3 I3 راح تكون 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. This is the identity of order 3. And this matrix is very important in this section. So related to this topic, finding the inverse matrices. If A has an inverse, if A matrix which has an inverse, we say also, how do we call it? How do we call a matrix having an inverse? كيف نسميها? At the same time, a matrix which doesn't have an inverse. How do we call it? So if a matrix has an inverse, we say that it is invertible. Or non-singular. So, in an exercise, if it says that a matrix is invertible or a matrix is non-singular, this means that the inverse exists, that A inverse exists. Okay? Otherwise, if it's not, if it has no inverse, شو نسميها؟
Singular.
Singular. So singular matrix means a singular which has no inverse. السؤال, how can we characterize a matrix which has an inverse? كيف نعرف singular ولا invertible? كيف ممكن نقرر؟ يعطينا matrix يقول لي this matrix, is it singular or is it invertible?
حسب determinant.
برافو, حسب determinant. So if determinant of A is different from 0, what happens?
Invertible.
It's invertible or non-singular. Otherwise, if determinant of A equals 0, the matrix is singular. So let's try to answer question 2 first, and then I'll be back to the question 1. since we are talking about invertible and singular, what is the value of x for which this matrix of order 2 is singular? When this matrix is singular. How can you answer to this question?
Determinant 0.
Well, now the matrix A is singular, means determinant of A is 0. So here we look for the values of x which make this determinant, the determinant of this matrix, equal 0. But what is the determinant of this matrix? How can we calculate the determinant of a matrix of order 2?
1 minus x times 2 minus x.
So we multiply these two elements, 1 minus x times 2 minus x.
Minus 2 times 1.
We multiply this element, 2 times 1. We distribute 2 minus 3x plus x squared minus 2. We simplify, we get x squared minus 3x. This is the determinant of this matrix. And we want that the determinant is 0. This gives me an equation, x squared minus 3x is 0. So this matrix is singular when x squared minus 3x equals 0. This is a quadratic equation. We can solve it. So here we can make x common factor, which means that x is 0 or x is 3, which is option A. So when x is 0 or x is 3, this matrix is singular. نرجع للquestion A. So the criteria for a matrix to be non-singular, قلنا A non-singular, if and only if determinant of A is non-zero. Now the question, so this means that A inverse exists. السؤال مين هو هذا ال A inverse؟ كيف نحسبه؟ Okay. Then عندنا several ways to find the A inverse depending on the situation. The first case, when we have a candidate. So we look for the inverse of matrix A. يجيو مترشحين كثير. كيف نعرف what candidate satisfy our requirement?
لما يعطيني الidentity.
Candidate. So a candidate which satisfies our requirement must satisfy that if we multiply it A times B and B times A equals the identity. Okay, this is our requirements for the candidates of the position of the matrix of the inverse of the matrix. So in this case, we'll say that B is the inverse. Inverse is unique, and this is the inverse of this matrix. This is the idea of question 1. So here we are given two matrices, A and B, such that A times B equals B times A, and equals to this matrix. السؤال على علاقة بالinverse of A. So here, if we compare our requirement by what the relation verified by B and A, can we say that B is the inverse of A? هنا هل B هو الانفرس؟ Of course not. ليش؟ لأنه
not
هذه is
identity.
not the identity. هذه is not I2. Then B is not the inverse of A. وهو ما قال لي إذا مستحيل الانفرس هو B، لأنه ال B لازم لما نضربها تعطيني الايدنتيتي اللي هي 1 0 0 1. لكن هو ايش اعطانا البرودكت؟ ما اعطانا الايدنتيتي، اعطانا this matrix. هل ممكن نربطها this matrix بالايدنتيتي؟ هذه 2 0 0 2. Can we express it in terms of the identity؟ شو رايكم؟
لما تقسمها على 2 يطلع لك الايدنتيتي.
نقسمها على 2، لكن انا ما احب اقسم هنا، احب اتركها زي ما هي. شو اسوي؟ ممكن اطلع 2 برا as a common. صح؟
صح.
إذن هذه كأنه the identity multiplied by 2. If you multiply 2 by the identity, you get this matrix. إذن هنا the relation between A and B, that their product, right and left, equals 2 times the identity. نحن هنا نحب the identity في الرايت سايد. إذن هنا عندي equality مساواة، ممكن أقسم الكل على 2. I divide all terms by 2 and I keep my equality. Okay. إذن إذا أقسم على 2 شاتيني IN هنا 1 over 2 BA وهنا 1 over 2 AB. إذن شو نلاحظ؟ نلاحظ إنه to the left A times 1 over 2 في B يعطيني الايدنتيتي، وهنا أيضا A بما إنه المالتيبليكيشن باي سكالر ممكن أنقله تعطيني أيضا الايدنتيتي. يعني إذا ضربت ال A by this matrix not B but half B I get identity. Then what is my conclusion? What can I conclude? I can conclude that I find my الشخص اللي أبحث عليه، الماتريكس اللي أبحث عليها، اللي هي شو راح تكون؟ What is the inverse of A?
Half B.
It will be half B. And إذا ضربنا A by half B to the left, to the right, we get the height. Okay? إذا يعطيكم candidate you check، لازم تضربوا right and left والنتيجة لازم the identity. Okay? أو إذا يعطيك relation as in this exercise لازم ظهر identity وتشوف what is multiplied by هذه شوية نوعية جديدة but I hope that it's clear. Question 3. Give the co-matrix of A. The co-matrix of A. What is the co-matrix of A? Here, matrix A is of order 3. Here, matrix of order 3 also. And the elements are the cofactors. Are the cofactors of the matrix C11, C12, C13, C21, C22, C23, C31, C32, C33. مين يتذكر الكوفاكتورز؟ كيف نحسب C11؟ مين يتذكر؟ لازم نحسب الماينر أول M11. وكيف نحسب ال M11؟
نحذف الرو 1 والكولوم 1.
Determinant. We remove the first row and the first column. يبقى 1 0 0 1. We calculate this determinant 1 في 1 1 minus 0 في 0 0. هذا الام 11 سي 11. لأن حسبنا الام 11 كيف نحسب السي 11 من الام 11؟
معنا even فبيكون نفس.
إذا هنا عندنا minus 1 أس 1 plus 1 في m مجموعهم زوجي even هي نفسها m11 يعني 1. إذا هنا عندنا اختلاف أيضا في هذا مثلا في السي 13. كيف نحسب السي 13؟ نفس الشيء. We delete the first row and the third column to calculate M13. The determinant 0 1 minus 1 0. هذا يعطيني 0 minus 1 في minus 1 يعني 1. هذا M13. إذا كم السي 13؟ نفس الشيء. 1 plus 3 is even زوجي. إذا it's 1. So the correct answer is B here. And if you want to practice, you can check and calculate more cofactors. هذه اسمها the co-matrix. The co-matrix. وليش نحسبها الكو-matrix؟ لأنه for a matrix of high order عندي قانون يقول لي the inverse هو one of determinant of A. وهذا ليه لازم determinant different from 0. Co-matrix of A transpose. So we need the co-matrix to find the inverse of a matrix of order 3 or 4 or a higher order. Okay? هذه نسميها the co-matrix. زين. So here the matrix of cofactors of the elements of بقينا the inverse of a matrix of order 2. And this is really easy because what is the inverse of a matrix of order 2? First, we must calculate the determinant of the matrix. كم determinant هنا? 1 times 2 minus 1 times minus 4 يعطيني 6. Determinant 6. So what can we conclude? احنا هدفنا انه نحسب الانفرس. So when the determinant of A is 6, this means that
it's invertible.
Invertible. So it's possible. Okay? So that we can calculate the inverse. What is the formula for the inverse of a matrix of order 2? Yeah, 1 over determinant of A, يعني 1 over 6 times matrix of order 2 obtained by هنا by switching the position of these two elements. Then 2 يجي هنا, 1 يجي هنا, and switching the signs of these two elements. هذا minus 1 وهذا. This is the inverse matrix of A. We multiply if you want by 6. 1 over 3, 2 over 3, minus 1 over 6, 1 over 6. This is quite easy. The determinant of a matrix of order 2. What about B? What is the determinant of B? So it's minus 3 times 8 minus 4 times minus 6. Well, minus 24 plus 24, 0. What does it mean? This
impossible.
means that B is singular and B inverse doesn't exist. Finally, last question of this section. Again, find the numbers x such that this matrix is singular. So now we are used to this question. This means that the determinant of this matrix must be equal 0. So when this determinant is 0, we calculate the determinant. And the determinant it's 1 plus 2x, 3 minus x minus 2 times 4x. And then 3 minus x plus is x minus 2x square minus 8x, which gives minus 2x square minus 3x plus 3. إذن هذه equals 0. لازم quadratic solving this quadratic equation. Then using the general formula, A is -2, B -3, C is 3. And you calculate x minus b plus minus square root b square minus 4ac over 2a. وتحسب then 3 plus minus 9 plus 8 times 3, 24 over -4, and finally you get a value for x, 3 plus 9 is 33 over -4. المهم, these are the values of x making this matrix singular.